Hey guys, what's up? It is week 340. I got a handful of reviews for you and a huge kind of question of the week finally asked a question of the week, and I got a lot of responses on YouTube and Facebook. So just to let you guys know, I have a liver biopsy tomorrow. I'm recording this Thursday. So, it should be, it's nothing I don't think serious, honestly. It's probably something that can be taken care of from my understanding. I usually don't share this kind of information. Also, I've been going through a lot of stuff. So, I don't really know what's going to happen in the general future on the show and anything like that. It is what it is, and I'll keep you guys updated, all right? But let's hop into the reviews, and the first one up is The Lost. And I say right on here, a modern-day Last House on the Left, bloody disgusting. I wouldn't argue with that, although that was in 2006. So this is actually directed by Chris Sivertson, who worked with Lucky McKee. They worked on each other's movies, produced each other's movies and stuff, and it stars Mark Center as a couple kind of old-school indie horror royalty, and Misty Medea and Ruby LaRocca in the very beginning of this one. And this is based off a Jack Ketchum novel. So, Jack Ketchum passed away probably about, I don't even know, maybe 5 to 7 years ago, and he wrote a lot of kind of really intense horror novels like The Girl Next Door, Cover, what is the Red, a lot of stuff, pretty good stuff. I was a pretty big reader of his, and The Lost was one of his best books for sure. So this movie, when it came out, I really enjoyed it. I covered it on the old, a while back, a few years back, somebody picked it for a Patreon pick, and I was happy to do it because I'm a fan of the film and Mark Center. So this one essentially is kind of a retelling. The book is a retelling kind of based on a couple people, but what do they call it? The Pied Piper of Tucson, I think, was the guy, and he was kind of a mass murderer and whatnot. And this is kind of based the character of Ray Pye in here on that character. So the original Blu-ray from Anchor Bay, it was kind of like an upscale almost from the DVD, and it was bare bones. It's like they took all the special features off it and just put it out on Blu-ray. So it was kind of almost a downgrade from the DVD besides picture quality. But this picture quality on the new Ronin Flicks Blu-ray looks really good. It's a brand new 2K remaster from a 4K scan of the original camera negatives completed by Ronin Flicks. That's excellent. Sorry. Like I said, I am a big fan of the movie. I'm a big fan of the dialogue, the way it's edited, the way it's got a certain style about it. Kind of got like this crime aesthetic, how it's edited and just bizarre. Almost like a lot of people would say Natural Born Killers. It does have a Tarantino flair. So it follows this character, Mark Center, who in the very beginning, he murders these two women. And that's kind of like the darkest, dirtiest thing he's done. But he's an awful person. He's like an older guy that hangs around younger kids and basically gives them drugs and sleeps with all the girls. And he's just a compulsive liar, as often, degenerate kind of criminals are their entire life. So there's a lot of side characters in here. It kind of focuses on 3 characters that Ray is obsessed with as well. His kind of long-term girlfriend that he treats like crap. Excellent performance by her. I can't think of the actress's name. It also focuses on a rich girl that Ray has a small relationship with that actually... her mother has passed away, and they have this kind of small relationship, and Ray kind of tells her some things he shouldn't. And finally, this really sweet girl that is actually dating a police officer who's old enough to be her father. Her father's played by Richard Riley, a great character actor, or Richard Riley, I think it is. Great character actor. You guys would see him pop up in stuff like Hatchet and Mysterious Skin and Grounded for Life. He was in a TV series like that. Good small performance. But the police detective, the retired one, is Ed Lauder. Classic character actor, one of the best. Worked with Charles Bronson several times. He's in Magic. He's in Death Wish 3. He's in True Romance. He's in so many films. Excellent actor. Excellent performance here too. And his ex-partner, because he's retired now, is Michael Bowen, who also turns in a top-notch performance. A few weeks ago, I talked about him in Dead Girl, and he's hilarious in that movie. I wish I was 15. I'm 17. I wish I was 15. He's great in that. He's even better in this. He knows who Ray Pye is, and he believes that he is the one who killed the 2 girls in the beginning, so he's constantly stalking and grilling him. So that dialogue is always so good, and Michael Bowen's just perfect at going from polite and funny and jovial to very serious and intimidating, and he does that a lot with Ray. Mark Center holds his weight really well with these kind of heavier, these bigger actors, you know what I mean, like Michael Bowen and stuff like that. He's right up there on the level. He has a lot of scenes with him. them. But this movie actually becomes incredibly violent, as a lot of films did in the early 2000s from America, you know. Lucky McKee behind it, that's no surprise. He would go on to make like The Woman. He's producing this. So it has that kind of woman, you know, kind of feel, like May almost, like a certain kind of aesthetic, which I really like. I think this would make a great double feature with The Woman, which is also a Jack Ketchum story, or even Dead Girl, which came out a few years later. But I have to take my hat off to this release. You know, it looks good, it sounds good. The opening with the tracking shot and the Ray walking and stuff is just something that's amazing. And like I said, this is a time that somebody did call me out on this because I mentioned how much I didn't care for the Last House remake, and they said, you know what, this time in film was kind of crazy because honestly, it was some of the most violent, gory stuff being put towards the mainstream. Now, Lost isn't 100% mainstream, but The Lost has a more mainstream aesthetic than a lot of stuff you would see that's harsh, especially nowadays. So like you're looking at it as Terrifier 2 gets released in theaters, but as you're talking about it, you got stuff like Hatchet 1 and 2 and stuff like that, you know, Saw movies coming out, in Hostel, and a lot of violent stuff and like special effects. And this movie has a ridiculously high kill count towards the end. It becomes kind of a kill spree movie, a spree killer film, and it's intense. It's not exactly like the book. The book has a different ending, of course, and some different things happen. The book's great if you're a fan of Jack Ketchum, I recommend, or the movie, reading it. But yeah, this has also got a slew of features on here which are well worth your time. So here we go. We have a new audio commentary with director Chris Sivertson and producer Lucky McKee. That's really good. I love that they mention how they found Misty Mundane. They basically saw those independent movies. They said they grew up on those EI movies when they were getting an independent, alternative independent, and I did too. So that's kind of cool. And I'm here talking about the movies, and they're out there making them. So hey, and then we have archival audio commentary of Jack Ketchum, moderated by writer Monica O'Rourke, and new interviews with cast member Mark Center. Love seeing that. He looks great too. He's got to be up, you know, close to 40. Robin Sidney and Shay Astar. Those are all really good, really interesting. Mark Center was really good. Audition tapes, outtake, storyboard sequence, original Jack and Jill short film by Chris Sivertson, and you'll notice that because that one pops up in May. It's if you the one video that who's that actor that shows May, the short film he made, that's actually the film that they show, so you can watch it in its entirety. But this is a great film. If you like these kind of almost extreme crazy films, I really recommend it. Great soundtrack too, great aesthetic, and the original book I think takes place in the 50s, so like it's not exactly a 50s movie, but it definitely doesn't, it's not a period piece, but it has a certain flair to it. That's The Lost. Great stuff. Okay, the next one here is from Jess Franco, and this is a full moon release, and this is Blue Rita. Now I know there was some controversy about this cover. Somebody said that they took that and it's not actually an official cover. I don't know anything about that, except that I heard some rumblings about that. So this is produced by Erwin Dietrich, who did Jack the Ripper. They're saying on here, produced Jack the Ripper with Klaus Kinski. And is that a Jess Franco too? I'm not 100%. I think it might be. But Blue Rita. So 77, Franco is a movie-making machine. He makes so many movies a year. Blue Rita is one that I hadn't seen. First thing I popped in, I thought they remastered the Blu-ray. It looked really good. No subtitles. A little disappointed, but the dialogue's a little cheesy. So this plot is nonsense. If you guys seen, what is The Girl from Rio, you know, that has like a espionage kind of spy like tinge to it in Franco world. This does too. This does have that kind of spy stuff, but it's not as complicated. It's a lot less, you know, big and well acted. There's some really poor dubbing, which is actually comical. So, okay, here we go. We have this, I guess, international group of women that are like kind of like, you know, like strippers. Blue Rita is the leader. And what they do is they kidnap like diplomats or double agents or boxers, anybody that could possibly have a lot of money or access to a lot of money or has something that they want. They kidnap them, they tie them up naked in this dungeon, and they grill them and yell at them, and then they dump this green slime on them. Kid you not, green slime, but not that kind of green slime. That makes them sexually like frustrated and incredibly horny, and then they torture them by kind of writhing around above them and whatnot. So yeah, it's basically that. There's a lot of that. Of course, one of the girls kind of falls for somebody that is captured, and there's double agents and double crossing. It's all really silly and softcore and just basically a reason to show a bunch of girls naked and be a dominatrix kind of deal there. It's all right if it's your thing. It's kind of funny. I didn't mind it. The dubbing made me laugh out loud because there's just stuff that they say is just absolutely terrible. He's just like, let me have sex with her. It's just like, I can't believe this. Like, I would just love to sit in on the dubbing session. The guy's reading the lines, and everybody's like, "That's good. That sounds good. We're gonna roll it, print it. That's great." But there's a point where this guy has a heart condition, and he screws a woman until he has a heart attack. All sorts of nonsense. The set designs are really bizarre. There's an entire room with all plastic furniture, something that Jess Franco would do. Everything is like that. It's just absolutely weird and kitsch and all that kind of stuff here. So if you're a fan of Franco, I can't show you the inside of that. A lot of nudity. There's a lot of sex in here. There's a lot of characters, and if it's up your alley, check it out. There's a lot of jazz kind of club bands and everything like that. I know that Franco, he was a jazz fan, if I'm not mistaken. I think Venus and Furs has a big kind of jazz kind of oriented thing involved with it. So yeah, Blue Rita looks good, has a DVD as well. So if you're a fan of Franco, then check it out. You could do a lot worse for Full Moon or Franco or Euro cult cinema from this time. Okay, this is probably one of the most bizarre releases that Unearthed Films ever put out, and this is from the Unearthed Classics line, number 13 here, unlucky number 13, and this is Full Body Massage by Nicolas Roeg. Nicolas Roeg did stuff like Eureka and Don't Look Now, so a bizarre time walkabout, a bizarre title for Nicolas Roeg to direct, and a bizarre title for Unearthed Films to release. So this stars, of course, Brian Brown from stuff like Cocktail and FX, and Mimi Rogers, who is a knockout in this movie. She's kind of an older woman, but she's in this, and she's like middle-aged, perfectly cast, still incredibly attractive. So here's basically the plot, and you're going to say that's the plot, but it gets a little bit more complicated. There's a lot of dialogue. So Mimi Rogers is this really kind of business-oriented woman. She's got a high-stress kind of job, everything like that. She seems to be well off, and every week she has her personal masseuse come in and give her a massage. This time around, he's not there. She's already starting to fantasize about it. He's a younger man, and you can tell that she's into him. There's a thing there, maybe a little bit more than a massage. Not full-out sex, but just a little bit more than a massage, and she has these feelings for him. So Brian Brown ends up showing up, and he's his replacement, and he's an older guy, and he's just kind of, at first he's really kind of abrupt but strange, esoteric, philosophical, all these kind of things here. Starts asking her questions, and they start to argue almost and talk and really kind of dive underneath the surface, and we start to see flashes of her feelings toward this guy, this masseuse, and then we also start to see flashes of Brian Brown's past with his relationship that he had and a relationship that she had, and we can kind of see all these kind of deep meanings, and we're kind of getting into this point where we see these kind of things pop up that are like these kind of philosophical messages and things like that, all about kind of massages. So we can see that a massage is not just a relaxation of the muscles, it's kind of a relaxation of the soul, maybe diving deep underneath the surface and seeing really all these things that you have stress for and you have longing, all these kind of things in there, and kind of releasing them. Maybe it's even cathartic for the guy giving the massage at this point. But that's pretty much the movie. It's a solid movie. I mean, it's well acted. There's tons of nudity. I mean, Mimi Rogers bears it all. She and you see everything. So I mean, if that's what you're looking for, it's definitely kind of it was one of these 90s, like, felt like a TV movie kind of softcore deals that you'd see on Skinamax, but it's directed by like a world-class director. So he's like, I'm going to direct the shit out of this. I'm going to write the shit, get a good script. So it's kind of turned into something else much more than that, if that makes any sense, from kind of like an auteur directing just a 90s softcore erotic kind of thing that people would, rub one off to, but directed by somebody that cares a little bit more than that and wants to make something different and special in that, I guess is what you'd say Full Body Massage is. But that's kind of exactly what you're getting here. So basically the features are a new 2K scan, a TV version, stills galleries, and trailers. So that's Full Body Massage from Unearthed Films. There is subtitles. It looks pretty good. And check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley. Okay, this one's kind of interesting. You know what? This is a movie that I probably passed by a dozen times and never registered even what it was. But this is 2015. This is a 4K released by Arrow Films. And this is Michael Mann's Blackhat. So this has Chris Hemsworth in it, of course. So this is a bizarre one. This is a real bizarre film. It looks great, I must say, on 4K. It sounds great. There's a lot of explosions, and this is a weird thing. You remember in the 90s, there was all these, like, even late 80s techno thrillers where they're doing the internet, like The Net and all this kind of shit, hackers. It's like everybody's doing the internet and all this technology and stuff like this. This is kind of like the modern equivalent to that, although it is 8 years old already, which is crazy to think. It still feels a little bit modern because this shit's happening right now, or you got these terrorists that hack into companies and hold them hostage for money or whatnot. So essentially what we have here is there's this company that's hacking in and blowing things up and doing all these kind of devastating things, and nobody really knows why they're doing it. China and the United States are working together to try to figure this out, and they have this Chinese agent and his sister and a couple of American agents, and one of the American agents is the guy from Criminal Minds. He's in Creepshow 2. He's in Nightmare Alley, the remake, Del Toro's Nightmare Alley. I can't think of his name. He's a good actor, very good. Love this guy. But he's kind of having a resurgence in the last 10 years, and that's very nice to see. So Chris Hemsworth's a master hacker kind of deal, whatnot, of course, and he's in this federal kind of prison, high, rank, like high maximum security prison. Typical, right? They're like, we know you can help us. And he's like, I want a deal. I want to catch this guy. I get out. It's very kind of the deal, right? Like, you've seen it a million times, Escape from New York, right? So basically, he agrees to do it. They eventually agree. He hooks up the Asian guy. The Asian cop and him know each other. So what happens is they kind of start to infiltrate and figure out what the hell is going on. There's a lot of, high action moments, and there's a lot of like images of like people hacking into computer systems and stuff like that and figuring out the mystery. But eventually, it all leads to this kind of terrorist organization that's pretty crazy, and obviously ran by kind of who you would expect in this kind of situation here. The main kind of baddie and everything is kind of dead on the nose, I guess, in a kind of movie like this, I would say. But and then there's some good action in here, and there's some really kind of crazy moments later on in the film. A lot of characters do get killed, which is kind of shocking, surprising. It's a well-made action film by Michael Mann. What can you say? I mean, the dude shoots shootouts like no other. If anybody's never seen Heat and stuff, the guy's a master at what he does. So all that stuff is great, right? All the action is great, and the dialogue is fine, the story is fine, but it's also just kind of a lot of jargon about computers and hacking and people arguing. And for the runtime, over 2 hours, 2 hours and like 20 minutes. What is it? It's an hour and 32 minutes. So we're like looking at an hour and 14, 2 hours and 14 minutes. That's a bit long. It does kind of wear its welcome out when we're talking about, a lot of that jargon. But at the time, I'm sure it was deeply fascinating. But now in 2023, we're just living it. We hear news stories like this all the time, which means maybe this movie needs some props for that, and it should. But there's 3 cuts on here. We have the original U.S. cut, the international cuts are both on 4K. But now we have disc 2, the director's cut. And this is Michael Mann's director's cut, and it's only on Blu-ray, but this is for the limited edition only. But as far as the special features, here we have Dolby Vision, HDR10 compatible for both U.S. and international cuts. Original loss was 5.1 audio. A brand new audio commentary by critics Brian Reisman and Max Irvy. Firewall, brand new interview with cinematographer Stuart Dryborough. Zero Day Threat, brand new video interview with production designer Guy Hendricks. Dias, the cyber threat on location around the world and creating reality. 3 archival behind-the-scenes featurettes on the making of the film. An image gallery. So if you like this film, check it out. I enjoyed it. It's not something that I would revisit too much, but if I wanted to see some kind of high-paced, loud, action, shootouts and stuff, I would check it out. Those are all good in here. Alright guys, we're going to hop into those 1981 movies.
Woe be unto him who opens one of the 7 gateways to hell, because through that gateway evil will invade the world.
on a Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on and on. And no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. In this little town, when the 14th comes round, there's a silence and fear in the air. Remember the morn that the legend was born, all the shock and the horror was there. For the legend, they say, on a Valentine's Day is a curse that'll live on and on. And no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago. And no one will know as the years come and go of the horror from long time ago.
Okay, the first one up is, I should just put a pronunciation up here to how to do it. Phra Rot-Meri, which is also called like Yarski, the giant, the evil giant, which is weird because there was this kind of like bootleg place, like Vomit Bag or something, that used to sell all these crazy bootlegs, and they'd always make it out, all these ones that make it out the most violent, crazy thing. It's like the most gory, violent, eye-ripping movie. You're like, oh, Yarshi the giant, or the evil giant, something like that, or the evil one. So I gotta see that. So like when I realized it was 81, and I'm like, where the fuck is this on my master list? I can't find this anywhere. And then eventually I found it had an alternative name, and it's a Thai film, and it's Phra Rot-Meri, and it had no subtitles. So here we go. This is a 2 hour and 14-minute Thai film in Thai. And I'm like, well, maybe I can do the AI-generated subtitles. Boy, oh boy. So here we go. A 2 hour and 14-minute movie that's very regional and very fantastical, that follows all these kind of things with AI subtitles, me trying to understand it. Okay, so basically what we have here is some sort of evil giants, or these mystical people, kidnap these 12 women, and they keep them in this kind of contained place. All right, and I'm not going to get into too much details here. They have these characters that can grow and shrink, and one is almost played as comical relief, and he grows breast, and he actually feeds a child at one point with his breast. Really bizarre. There's a whole scene where it kind of veers off, and there's a giant cockfighting scene, which is kind of odd. And this chicken almost seems magical. This rooster seems magical to people. They're all after the rooster. And then there's at this time where there's like a mother and a son fighting about things, and everybody keeps saying, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you, don't kill me, I'll kill me. And I think that there's a translation issues, and everybody's going to the police station. I'm going to tell the police officials, but this seems like a period piece, so I'm like, that must mean the magistrate or some king, or I don't know, because these AI subtitles on the base model are just not that great. But so I watched it anyways. There's some weird moments here. Like I said, there's a couple kind of crazy moments that come out of left field. Like, they hyped this up to be incredibly violent, and at first you're like, this is just a fantasy comedy kind of almost kaiju thing where they're growing and shrinking, and I'm sure it's interesting if you know the stories. It almost seems like kind of an old myth or something along the lines. But at one point, one of the kind of evil ones needs eyeballs, so they go pluck all the girls' eyes out. And I was like, what are we even doing here at this point? So we have a jar of eyes, and I'm just like, that was way dark. And I'm spoiling this, so it's on YouTube if you want to watch it. One of the women is actually pregnant, and she gives birth, and all these blind women down in this pit are starving. So they rip the baby apart and eat it. And I was like, that is completely out of line for this movie. Maybe it's played differently when you watch it with the correct subtitles. But I was just like, geez, Louise, man, that was rough stuff. But there's a lot of just incredibly goofy stuff, incredibly weird stuff. It feels like kind of an Indonesian movie and a Bollywood movie all at the same time, but it's not. It runs too long. I don't know how to rate this because I couldn't 100% follow it, but it is a weird one. Yarshi the giant. Check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley. It's on YouTube. Okay, the next one here is from Japan, and this is called Summer of Demon or Summer of Evil. I think it has two names possibly, and this is based off the classic ghost story. They made a version of it in 1959, 1962, around that time, and it's a classic tale that's been done. It's the ghost story that's been adapted the most in Japanese kind of films. I think close to 30 times, and so this is basically the story of kind of a guy who is with this woman, and it's a period piece, of course, and he gets in an argument with her father, and he decides to kill him. And at the same time, somebody else waiting for another person to come out kills the wrong person. And these two look at each other and they say, we just murdered two people. We're in this together. Let's hide these bodies and blame a rival gang. So that's kind of what happens here. The guy who killed the father of his wife swears vengeance on this gang. He swears up and down. While the guy that he knows that helped him cover this up is in love with the girl's sister, I believe, and she's a prostitute. If I'm understanding this, I'm not 100% sure exactly what is going on here. But as he swears allegiance to this, to his wife to get revenge for something that he did against the rival gang, the rival kind of gang, they're not gangs, like kind of people, whatever, village or whatever, the rival kind of leader of that has his eye on him to marry his daughter. And he starts to kind of make plans towards to get rid of that guy's wife. So what happens is she gets brutally scarred, and through tragic circumstances, a lot of people end up dead. But this guy, basically, he cannot, and it's really his fault. A lot of people end up dead here, and all these people that are dead are haunting him. Everywhere he looks, he sees the disfigured face of his wife. That's kind of the story here, and there's also the whole catalyst of the story in the very beginning here is that this Ronin, or he kind of, this Ronin that's on retainer, as is this guy, kind of just left his wife, which I think is the sister's, the prostitute. She became a prostitute because of it. He just left her. I could be misinterpreting some of this. I mean, it's a kind of a crazy story, and there's different variations of it everywhere. So yeah, there's a high number of people that end up dead. It's almost like a Shakespearean story, really, if you look at it in a lot of ways. But it's a ghost story, and Japan's really good at those kind of ghost stories. A classic one about a disfigured face, all this kind of stuff. And it, like I said, I think the 62 version is probably the more popular one, but this one is okay from 81, and I'm glad I watched it. Another piece of that puzzle to understand kind of Japanese culture a little bit. But yeah, Summer of Demon. I think that it's kind of interesting to see the Japanese movies from this year, like Samurai Reincarnation, Summer of Demon, Pig Chicken Suicide, and of course Island of Evil Spirits. Okay, the next one here. This is going to be a mouthful. This is Toukaidou Yotsuya Kaidan, the anime, and this is from 81. I used AI subtitles again, and they were absolutely horrible for this. So it's lucky that this is based off the same source material as Summer of Demon, right? These are all the same story. So we had two in the same year, but this time it's an anime version. So here we go. Now this one is kind of told like by this old man on stage, and he's talking and he's sweating and he's acting it out, and then we kind of have the anime happening at the same time. We'll cut back to him. Sometimes we'll hear his narration over the voice. So this is the same story, just more simplified. So we kind of cut out the kind of prostitute or the geisha, not geisha's not prostitute, but you know what I mean, the kind of prostitute woman kind of thing here. So what we have is the typical story of this guy wanting to get rid of his wife, and he poisons her, and she gets scarred up, and he's haunted by her. That's kind of the story that happens here. And he pays, in the original story, he wants to pay that one scoundrel to rape his wife so he can honorably walk away from her, but he won't do it. This one, he basically pays somebody else to scar her. This guy is haunted by it, and he ends up killing him, and he ends up being haunted by all these people. And so like this one is more straightforward. It's like 45 minutes, so we get right into the action. It doesn't really stall, but watching this kind of helped me understand the story a little bit better, even if the subtitles were absolutely garbage. But overall, it's an interesting look. It's a nice animation because it's kind of, Jeremy looked at it for a second and said, it looks old school and kind of new modern anime. So it's like a mixture of both, and I like the storytelling aspect on stage. So anytime I try to see something a little different from the year, I will, to get a broader kind of look at everything. But I would recommend checking this out if you speak Japanese, because the AI subtitles are garbage. It is on the Internet Movie Archive if you're looking for it. So yeah, check it out. So the Patreon pick by my friend Jonathan Wilhelm was any Mondo Macabro release that you wanted to watch that you didn't get a chance to watch. So I picked 76? I believe it is 76. The 1976 German movie, Bloodlust, aka Mosquito the Rapist. And I think this made the Section 3 video nasty list, if I'm not mistaken. And you know what? I actually really freaking enjoyed this one. I had heard about it for years. It's 77 here. So yeah, so the English dub is not very good, so I wouldn't recommend watching it there. I would recommend watching the German original language. So this is one of these movies that I just kind of love, right? These kind of weird, kind of social rejected characters that are on that cusp of violence or that cusp of weird disorders. So Mosquito is basically, he's a mute. He doesn't talk. He doesn't, they don't think he can like hear or anything like that. So they call him deaf and dumb, right? So what happens is he's just a very bizarre man that lives alone, and he has a very strange fascination. He lives kind of in this apartment where he has these dolls that he kind of focuses on. Reminds me of Killer of Dolls, right? It's the Spanish film from 76, 77, around the same time. Great movie. And he has these dolls, not mannequins. That one's mannequins, but he's obsessed with them. And the kind of thing that he's like a necrophile, if you will. He's not a necrophiliac, but they call him Mosquito for a reason. So over time, he starts to kind of go inside the tomb, right? And Ed Gein, at first, he's sucking blood, and then before long, he's gouging out eyeballs, and they're in grotesque detail. And eventually, it's just not enough. He keeps going in and taking more and more until he upsets the authorities. He ends up killing somebody in the process. And eventually, dead people are not kind of enough, and it escalates. Of course, it's not an all-around serial killer. It is a serial killer movie in the aspects like that, but it has some similarities to something like Necromantic. Not Necromaniac, not the Ron Atkins. Necromantic, the York Buckarat film. So it has some similarities to that, but I would put it in line with something kind of like Killer of Dolls or Dream No Evil. These kind of weird, kind of reclusive Norman Bates style characters that are outcast, and they kind of just are on that cusp, that character study of being bizarre and awful, and I really liked it. It's totally up my alley. The special effects aren't perfect, but there's some grotesque imagery. He's a ghoul, man. He's going in there and drinking the blood and gouging the eyeballs out, and eventually it's just only a matter of time before someone like this commits a murder, like Ed Gein. So I would really recommend checking out Mosquito the Rapist. That's what he signs all his crime sprees as. And this actor here is in stuff like The Cat O' Nine Tails. He's in a bunch of movies. You'll recognize him. He just has that unique kind of German, almost Nazi-like presence, to be honest. He's really well done. And there's this kind of small girl, this kind of slow girl that lives in the apartment, and she's an interesting character as well. But I really like this one. I guess this one's from Switzerland. I thought it was German, but it's in German and English. But we have Switzerland as the country here, directed by Marijan Vajda. And so the special features are brand new 2K transfer from Film Negative, exclusive interview with assistant director, exclusive interview with actress Bridget Zamola. And the assistant director is his son, so he remembers bringing this up. And he actually is like, I'm kind of surprised that this movie holds up. It's actually really good and really interesting. And, the effects aren't great, but, it holds up, and I was happy to be a part of it. So, yeah, Mosquito the Rapist, I would recommend checking it out. It's definitely up my alley. And it's also a Section 3 video nasty, so check that off the list. All right, let's get into these questions, comments, concerns. So basically what I asked was there any movie that you could remember parts of and you could never remember the title? And I also said if you didn't have one, name one that you forgot about for years and then eventually remember the title. So here we go. It's a lot of comments, so bear with me. Ember Rot, hey man, just wondering if you could provide any recommendations for good creepy horror films featuring mannequins outside the usual Tourist Trap Maniac remake. I recommended Hatchet for the Honeymoon and Killer of Dolls. And somebody comments Killer of Dolls is brilliantly insane. That's Kaidan 1472. So Ember Wright comes back and says, thanks man, watched Killer of Dolls yesterday, just the kind of thing I was looking for, absolutely batshit, gonna check out Hatchet for the Honeymoon now, thanks again. No problem. Simpsons guy, I think the original Thing from Another World is kind of underrated. Most people just talk about how much better the remake is, which it is, but I think many people forget how good the original is. Same thing with the original Fly, two of the best 50s sci-fi movies. The original Fly is awesome. Kaidan 1472 enjoyed the Kinder Trauma section selection. Hope to see more. We got to look out for the next generation. Yes, we do. Ken Coakley. I liked Final Exam. I watched it back in the early 80s, but forgot a lot of it. I bought the Scream Factory Blu-ray when they had it just released it. I thought it was a refreshing change of pace. The killer wasn't a mystery. He wasn't wronged by any of the victims. He didn't drown as a little kid. He didn't stab his naked sister on Halloween. He wasn't burned to death by his parents. He just was. The victims were merely the wrong place at the wrong time. Very nihilistic, right? When I first heard you reviewing Final Exam, I confused that with Night School and Graduation Day. All three were 1981 films, and I called the School Slasher Trilogy. I like all those. I know that Student Bodies came out in 81, but it's comedy. Graduation Day is my favorite of the three because Christopher George, one of my favorite actors, and Linnea Quigley, my dream girl, were in it. I also have to come clean. I liked the band that played at the roller rink. The guy in the front of the stage had me cracking up. Even on roller skates, he couldn't dance. Or he could dance, possibly. I don't know. I also like The Thing from Another World. I've seen it numerous times, but it was best was in 2015 when I saw it at my local cinema on a huge screen. Black and white is amazing on the theater screen. It was also a change of pace seeing Kenneth Tobey as a protagonist, as he was playing bad guys throughout the 70s in such films as Billy Jack, Walking Tall, Dirty Mary, Crazy Lady, and Mary, and many more. I do have a memory of a movie I saw when I was 5 or 6 at the drive-in twice. I only remembered a scene where the guy was with face like clay pulling a wig over it. I found out in 1998 while working at the video store, I discovered it was the abominable Dr. Fives. On the back of the box, the rating said GP instead of PG. I thought I had imagined GP rating. The movie I saw when I was 5 was an anthology of fairy tales told by Santa Claus, who was stranded on a beach in Florida. I remember the name of the film. No matter how silly the title was. It was called Santa and the Chocolate Bunny. I thought I had imagined it, but it was real. It's directed by Florida-based filmmaker Barry Mann, who was a POW in a German camp during World War II and was partially the inspiration of Steve McQueen's Cooler King character in The Great Escape. Very cool information. Travis Linscomb. Always say Final Exam is one of my favorite standalone slashers. I love that movie. Justice for Radish. Slasher should be part hangout movie. It's just for slasher. Wait, Justice for Radish. Slasher should be part hangout movie. It's just this larger hangout than most. It works for me. Zach Nolan, 7562. There was a random short film that would come on in the early 80s. It opens with a woman taking a shower. Her boyfriend is saying goodbye, but leaves his ventriloquist doll behind. Of course, this doll begins to chase down the girl around her apartment. At one point, she locks herself in the bathroom and looks under the crack in the door. The doll's head is on the floor on the other side. The doll's looking back at her. I was really creepy and always stuck with me, but I never remember the name of the show or short. There was something else like this about a man being stalked by mannequins. All this stuff was very creepy to me. Wish I knew what these were. I think that the dummy one is just called The Dummy or The Ventriloquist. You can find it on YouTube. I'm pretty sure. 82, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around that, early 80s. Fat Pig the Conqueror. I always remembered a Sherlock Holmes parody with pigmen in it. Turns out it was a movie called Private Eye starring Don Knotts, and they weren't Sherlock and Watson, but just generic detectives. I happened to see a picture on the DVD cover, and I Googled it, and it was the movie. Still haven't watched it again. Another movie was Getting Lucky, where a nerd finds a leprechaun in a beer bottle. I remembered it being a genie. I just happened to be on Tubi and clicked on it. There's a scene I remember when some party animal kids, it might be bikers, are on the highway, and they all get toll booth. They get it to a toll booth that is closed. Instead of turning around, drive right through the wooden board that's supposed to stop them. Can't remember what movie it's from. Me either. I know there's a lot of bikers in Any Which Way But Loose or Every Which Way You Can. One of those Clint Eastwood ones. I don't know if that happens in it. Hudson 3838. There was 3 films I've been looking for years, and they were all of something in common. Thanks to Google, I found 2 of them. The first one was all I can remember was with a witch coming out of the lake and killing people, and a priest versus a buzzsaw, which I now know is called Superstition. That's an 82 one. And second was a movie. Was a man and woman driving along, crashing into a lake, and the woman gets possessed by a witch, and that was called She Beast. The third one, I have no idea. All I remember is there was a serial killer, and he was hiding bodies of women or kids in the house that was under a lake, and near the end, a man or woman swims down and finds the bodies. I saw it years before The Deep House, so when I saw the trailer for The Deep House, I thought, oh great, they remade it. But no, don't ask what year. I haven't got a Scooby-Doo. Me either on that one. Wasted time to control shop. There was a film where some karate guys fight in hell on a rope bridge. Still looking for that movie. King of Kickboxers has a Bloodsport vibe. Why is it hard to remember Kung Fu movies? Great video. Is it a Shaw Brothers one? Because I feel like a lot of that stuff happened in the early 80s, right? There's like a lot of those, like that I watched, Avengers from Hell, all sorts of stuff. Like that one's an anthology. I got to think. But there's one I watched, like Shaolin Gate, might have, or Heaven and Hell. There's a lot of these kind of weird, Shaw Brothers ones. A libertarian homosexual, and the award for the hottest movie reviewer goes to the newly discovered Mrparka. Thank you. Collectitus. I surprisingly really enjoyed The Thing. Along the Day the Earth Stood Still is still my favorite from that era. The Nick Mua. Final Exam, one of the first slashers. I may upgrade to UHD soon. For now, I'm sticking with the German 2K release, which has 2 audio commentaries, one by the cast and one by the writer-producer. Very interesting. Question of the week. For the life of me, I can't find the title of this thriller flick. I think it's the late 80s, early 90s. One in which a woman is found barely alive after being attacked by a serial killer. The police are baffled she's alive, and a female detective, maybe a shrink, says she turned of the horror and kept Wildner from getting his fix. That's all I can recall. Help me, Mrparka Kenobi. You're my only hope. I seriously, though, any help is appreciated. My questions: are there any recent crappy movies you wish to exercise from your brain but can't? Boy, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to exercise from my brain because then I might watch them again on accident. Would you agree the U.S. politics are turning into a horror show? Is everybody overreacting? No, we've lost our minds. The United States has lost their minds. If you had all the money in the world, would you ever buy would you buy every Blu-ray there was? No. Wouldn't need to. I mean, if I wanted to watch it, I'd just buy it on the spot. Keep up the excellent work. Take care. Thank you. Kaidan 1472. Movie I've been dying to rewatch but don't recall is a late 60s, early 70s Italian, maybe Spanish, I believe. Marketing exec or possibly stranded traveler visits atmospheric castle of CEO who is vampires of sorts. Ooh, that's tough. There's so many movies that could be, right? That's tough. MJ say there was a film where there was a fight on top of a movie train at night I watched with my dad in the late 90s. It's not in any of the ones list or compilations of popular movies that I looked up. I mean, you got stuff like Runaway Train and Narrow Margin and Under Siege 2. It's tough. That's a tough one. Jason Bovey, The Thing from Another World, Blind Spot, confused. Daryl Angelo, hey, or is it Darla? Darla Angelo. Hey, just wondering if you're reviewing new Radiance Films movie, Visible Secret. I probably will. Mike Merriman, for your second category, teacher and students kidnapped by scary dudes in a clown mask, end up in a cave. Watched this as a kid and terrified me. Took me well into adulthood to track down the film. That's Fortress 85. And John Soloway, all from Australia. Okay, Mike Mitchell. It was sort of like RoboCop. A scientist creates a suit to protect, I think, astronauts from space. He gets killed and his brain put in a suit. He seeks revenge, but the suit is damaged. And anytime he is physically touched, he attacks the person. So Salvador Funkenstein guessed The Vindicator. That could be right. And then he also says there was some movie, maybe a sword and sorcerer, fantasy or even medieval, goon or villain who is near some blacksmith equipment, gets hot metal thrown at him, and reappears later with burns, scars on his face. Also not sure if the movie, but main character enter either an old castle or ruins with dead people covered in cobwebs. But the weirdest part was they weren't mummified or fully decomposed yet. Not 100% sure they were from the same movie though, but they played on TV the very same night. Part with the goon looked like it was from 60s, maybe 70s, not sure. David Chopping, okay, saw this in the late 70s or 1980. People travel in a blimp to the North Pole, stuff happens. Not sure. Cody Cooper, when I was a kid, I saw a movie that really freaked me out and don't know the title. It was a movie that took place on a farm and the animals could talk. In one of the scenes, they gathered in the barn around a pig who seemed to be the leader of the animals. I cut it short on accident. JP Andrika says, yeah, Animal Farm has been done a few times. That's what he guessed. And Cody Cooper says, I figured that's what it is. Thanks. So here we go. Michael Salyers. I was very sheltered as a kid. Everything I watched was monitored, raised in a super religious household. But before my mom married a pastor and it got way worse, we lived with my grandparents, and they would rent horror movies to watch after I was in bed. Somehow I ended up seeing a pretty big amount of one of them. I had never seen a horror film. I had never seen a horror film before. I must have been around 5-ish years old. I think I may have sneaked up and watched what I had seen of it. Anyway, the only thing I remembered in my 5-year-old half-asleep brain was a guy who to me at the time looked like a homeless guy played by Christopher Lloyd in the Dennis the Menace movie from the 90s, who at some point is about to cut a guy open with a chainsaw and at the end gets zipped up in a body bag. Fast forward to about 7 or so years back, I tend to blind spot. I probably have 500 unwatched titles at the point. I put in Scream Factor's Blu-ray of Body Bags with a friend I had at the time, spoke highly of. Part of the way through, John Carpenter's character keeps saying and doing things that stuck in a chord in the head. Finally, I messaged my friend and asked at any point did this character use a chainsaw on someone, and he did get zipped up in a body bag at the end. He responded that he did. With that answer, my excitement went through the roof because I had officially found the first horror film I ever watched. Sorry if it was a bit long-winded. I just get excited thinking about how it turned out. No, that's great. Rob Kapinski. There's a film I remembered as a kid. All I can say is that it's probably the late 70s, and the only thing I really remember about the ending, I think towards the end, of survivors running through what seems to be a kind of maze. Maybe, I didn't put Seymour on there. But JP Andrika says, is it black and white? There's an old movie of people in a maze at the end. A scary frog appears. And he says, I don't think it was black and white. I'm sure it probably was made for TV, like an old ABC Monday night at the movies kind of thing. I also think creatures are sort of like mud creatures or something that was coming up from the ground. And he responds, sounds like slime people, but it's black and white. Mindy King, there was a horror film movie I watched as a really young kid. It completely traumatized me. I don't know exactly, but this family went to Newtown. Everything was green. All the foods were eaten. It was so weird to me. That's Troll 2, of course. She remembered. Yep, I was so excited when I found out. And somebody responds, Lee Bishop, you don't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it. And then we have Stan Moreland. I have a mystery movie that nobody has ever been able to crack. I've been searching for the movie for over 40 years. When I was around 3 or 4, probably 70, 72, I used to go to my parents' drive-ins. I usually fall asleep. And God damn it, I forgot to do the Seymour. I'm not having a great week, so I'll try to remember to do that next week. And he guesses The Changeling as a wheelchair, but I don't think it's that. Nicholas Holland. I remember something getting regular play on US AT Today in sci-fi in the early 2000s there, shot in similar stuff like Cherry Falls that featured college students sent either by their boss or professor to either investigate a small community or a rumor of cults. And he mentions like at the very end there's like people in robes. I think it's Lover's Lane. personally. Kari Sonnenfeld, I don't know what this movie was for years and finally figured it out when someone posted a review for it in 22 shots, but when I was a kid, I was watching a TV movie with my mom about a family being haunted by a demonic spirit. A scene where the family is outside at a park somewhere and to see the demon follow them outside of the home always stuck with me as being terrifying. The demon was basically just a black shadowy figure. I watched the movie a few years ago and it didn't hold up as well, but it's still a solid TV movie. I also came to find out it was based off the Warren case, and Mike Merriman says that sounds like the haunted TV movie from 91. And he remembers watching the premiere. And, of course, that's right. Joe Gracino, I just remember the girl got her necklace stuck in an escalator and was choked. It's a horror movie. No, it's not Chopping Mall or Phantom of the Mall. Could it be The Initiation? That takes place in a mall. Ben Gaudet, here's one I eventually found. How many pages are there? We got to be getting close to the end. I didn't got it in me. I eventually found. Okay. I remember my mother buying one of those cheap Walmart movies. Where are we at? Okay. Walmart movies back when I was extremely young, around 3 to 5, and it had a lot of trash on it except for one movie that scared the living hell out of me, an anthology, Creepshow style. And the first story I remember, a humanoid monster that lived in the ceiling of an elementary school and killed people. I also remember a short where a lady ordered from a KFC style fast food place and got a deep fried rat. I was so scared by this movie I had nightmares and refused to use public bathroom when I was a kid. Then around 10 or 12 years later, this movie randomly came to mind. I did some research and eventually found out it was The Willies. That's a fun one. This movie will always hold a special place in my heart for scaring the crap out of me as a kid. Dennis record. It was an old TV show, maybe one step behind, where a small smudge on the wall becomes this bigger smudge with cleaning and eventually revealing a corpse and a murder. Sounds cool. Gabriel, I remember a newer mid-budget for early 2000s movie. A woman and a couple friends break into a cabin at some abandoned summer camp. I remember a jump scare with a snake inside the cabin. No, it's not a lot to go on, but I can't remember much more. JP Andrika, I'd say Friday the 13th because they find a snake in the cabin and kill it with a machete, but that's 1980. And Gabe says, I definitely remember that one. Dexter Aruda, I watched the last half of one streaming years ago and never been able to find it. Some people are in a home invasion situation at a cabin home and are forced to do horrendous things to each other. There's a scene where, and somebody basically guessed Funny Games, and my friend Brittany Steele guesses, is it Vile from 2011? I don't remember the ending though. Okay, it could be. Somebody also says Mother's Day Reboot. JP Andrika, there was one on the USA back in the day. I just remember a woman lying nude in the forest with wolves howling like she had some connection to nature. I think possibly attacked a family member, maybe a kidnapped a kid. I thought it was a baby monitor, Sound of Fear, but it doesn't match up. Brittany Steele says 1990 says The Guardian, and I think it is The Guardian actually. I remember that. Matthew Hudson, not a horror movie, but while I was in Germany, there was a movie on TV which was all in German. I can't exactly explain it to me, but was a 7 with a what? There was a 7 with a giant joint and a scene with a giant vibrator. It ended with the main character using some sort of pheromone that caused a bunch of overweight women to crush him to death. Huh. You know what? That almost sounds like Dr. Heckle, Mr. Hype. Because there is a weird scene where a bunch of heavy women crush him to death with a pheromone. Still not sure what the fuck it was, but I'm looking for the answers for years. Rakesh Brown, zombie jumps out of TV screen and eats people while watching the zombie movie. That's got to be video dead. Let's hop into the update. It's going to be rather quick. So I had a whole fiasco with this bad boy. So I ordered it from Arrow. It got lost in the mail, and I did a customs report. They just sent a new one, and then the old one was found. They took that back before I got it. It was shipped back to them. But I didn't wait because I thought it was going on a print, and I didn't think I was going to be able to get one. So I ordered a Hellraiser Quartet of Torment 4K. And this is the pinhead version. I should have a chatterer, and then I'll sell this one if that shows up. But yeah, so what we have here is, this one right here. It has all four, the first 4 Hellraiser films on it. The first one in 4K, all 4 of them on here. So Hellraiser, Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, and Hellraiser 4, Bloodline. It's really exciting. Bunch of features on here. Anyways, I'm a big fan of the first 2 Hellraisers. 3's okay. 4 has some interesting stuff. But yeah, so anyways, we're going to get out of here, guys. Hopefully you like the update. And yeah, wish me luck. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one. Yeah.